What if your greatest strength wasn't in your voice, but in your silence? What if the real measure of success wasn't how many people notice you, but how deeply you know yourself? What if everything you've been searching for, peace, purpose, power, begins not with external achievement, but with mastering your inner world? Welcome to today's episode, where we explore a path less traveled, but deeply needed. A path that doesn't scream for attention, but instead demands depth, consistency, and a radical honesty with oneself. This is the Stoic path to self-mastery. We live in a time of noise where everyone is performing, producing, posting, but buried beneath the chaos is a quieter pursuit, a quest to become unshakable, not perfect, not popular, but steady, present, and sovereign. In this episode, we'll uncover the three pillars of the Stoic way to self-mastery: focus, discipline, and silent success. Along the way, we'll draw from the ancient wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, not just as philosophers, but as guides who knew what it meant to lead lives of integrity under pressure. Let's begin. Focus isn't just a productivity hack. It's the currency of your life. We live in a world engineered to fragment your attention. Notifications, news feeds, endlessly scrolling timelines. In the Stoic era, distractions came from the marketplace and court politics. Today, they're delivered straight to your pocket 24/7. What you give your attention to, moment by moment, is what your life becomes. Let that sink in. If your mind is constantly hijacked by reaction, comparison, or noise, your soul will feel scattered, unanchored, exhausted. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He didn't live with a smartphone, but he did live with chaos. As Emperor of Rome, he woke up every day to decisions that could shift the fate of the world. And still, he wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Focus is strength, and it's a choice. Let me tell you about a client I once worked with, a creative entrepreneur named Jasmine. She was smart, talented, deeply driven, but she was drowning in overwhelm. Her days started with checking email before brushing her teeth. Meetings, pings, Instagram loops, always reacting. She tried to write or create, but her thoughts were foggy, her energy flat. She came to me and said, "I have no time. I can't focus. My mind is constantly racing." We didn't start with to-do lists or productivity tools. We started with awareness. I asked her, "Where is your attention going when you wake up? Where does it go before bed?" She tracked her habits for 3 days, and when she looked at the log, she cried. Not because she was lazy, but because she realized she was giving her best energy, her golden hours, to noise, not creation, not clarity, not rest, just consumption. So we built a ritual. No phone for the first 90 minutes of her day. Instead, she did a walk, journaled, wrote her priorities by hand, protected her prime attention like sacred currency. The result? Within a month, her focus tripled, her creativity returned. She launched a project she'd been delaying for over a year. The point isn't about morning routines. It's about reclaiming attention. Focus is not about doing one thing forever. It's about deciding over and over again what deserves your energy. The Stoics practiced this through what I call attentional stoicism. They noticed where their thoughts wandered. They pulled them back, not with guilt, but with grace. Here's how you can begin. Start your day with intention, not reaction. Create time blocks for deep work. No notifications, no multitasking. At least once a week, take a digital Sabbath. Let your mind breathe. Journal with the question, what am I feeding my attention today? When you protect your focus, you protect your mind. You become less reactive, less anxious, less pulled by the tides of the world. You start responding instead of reacting, thinking instead of scrolling, living instead of performing, and something else begins to emerge. Clarity. Clarity about who you are, about what matters, about what you want to build, and who you want to become. In a distracted world, focus is a revolutionary act. So ask yourself, what deserves your undivided attention today? Who benefits when you are fully present? What brilliance is waiting beneath your scattered mind? Because when you reclaim your focus, you reclaim your future. And now that your attention is rooted, Let's turn to the structure that helps you stay consistent on this path. Discipline, the quiet framework of inner power. Now that we've grounded our attention through focus, the next layer of self-mastery is structure. Discipline, but not the kind taught through punishment or shame. The kind that liberates. At its heart, discipline is the architecture of freedom. Without it, we drift, we react, we abandon our own priorities for the urgency of others. With it, we become sovereign, intentional, alive. Seneca, the Stoic playwright and advisor to emperors, wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That is the soul of discipline, not control over the world, but command over your habits, your impulses, your energy. Here's what most people misunderstand. Discipline is not about waking up at 4 a.m., taking cold showers, or grinding without rest. It's about deciding once who you are, and aligning your daily actions with that identity. Let me tell you a story about Ethan, a veteran who had seen combat, trauma, and grief. After leaving the military, he found civilian life disorienting. Too much freedom, too little structure. Days blurred, sleep faltered. He said, "It felt like I had no gravity." We worked together to rebuild his inner architecture, not by micromanaging every hour, but by defining 3 core anchors. A morning ritual for clarity and grounding, a midday walk to reconnect with presence, an evening check-in to reflect and reset. These 3 simple practices changed everything. He didn't just get more done, he began to feel at home in his own life again. Discipline is what tethers us to our higher self when motivation disappears. That's why Stoics didn't wait for inspiration. They trained. They rehearsed adversity in the mind. They practiced voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, fasting, walking in the cold, to prepare for life's inevitable storms. You don't need to go that far, but the principle remains. Build systems that keep you aligned when emotions fluctuate. Daily disciplines might include writing each morning for 10 minutes, planning the day with 3 essential tasks, moving your body intentionally, not excessively, protecting time for solitude, keeping promises to yourself no matter how small. One of the most powerful mental shifts comes from embodying what I call the internal governor. This is the part of you that observes without judgment. It notices when you slip into old patterns, but it doesn't shame you, it simply redirects. It says, "You're better than this, come back." When you develop that inner witness, discipline becomes less about willpower and more about rhythm. Another client, a writer named Maya, used to struggle with procrastination, not because she lacked talent, but because she lacked rhythm. Her work depended on inspiration, and inspiration, as we know, is flaky. So we crafted a system. She wrote for 45 minutes at the same time every morning. No edits, no social media, just her, a timer, and a keyboard. Some days were brilliant, others were brutal. But she kept showing up. 6 months later, her first book was finished. Not because she forced it, but because she flowed with a rhythm of discipline. Here's the secret. Discipline is not rigidity. It's flexibility within structure. It's the musician practicing scales so they can improvise. The martial artist repeating forms to move with grace. The Stoic rehearsing clarity so they can meet chaos with calm. And yes, there will be days when you fall short. Days you break the streak. That's human. The key is not perfection, it's the return. The practice of returning is discipline at its highest. Ask yourself, what anchors could I create in my day? What one promise could I keep to myself this week? Where do I crave structure? And where do I resist it? You'll often find that the very thing you resist is the thing that would liberate you. Discipline is not about earning your worth. It's about honoring your path. And once your days are built on intention, you stop leaking energy into chaos. You move with quiet power. You trust yourself. Now that we've explored the inner disciplines of focus and structure, it's time to talk about the fruit they quietly bear. Success. But not the loud kind, not the performative kind, not the version that fits neatly into Instagram reels or LinkedIn announcements. We're talking about a quieter success, a deeper success, a success that you don't always see but you feel that Stoics never wrote about success as popularity. They spoke of arete, a Greek word that means excellence in character. It's about living in alignment with your highest values, not because someone is watching, but because you are. Let's go deeper. We live in a world that trains us to equate success with visibility. The more followers, the more views, the more praise, the more successful you are. But that's not mastery, that's performance. And often it's hollow. True success in the Stoic lens is private. It's silent. It's the discipline of a person who chooses what is right over what is popular, who shows up with kindness even when no one is clapping, who does the hard thing quietly because it aligns with who they are. Think about the mentor who shaped your life. Maybe it was a teacher, a parent, a coach. Chances are they never posted about it. They didn't seek validation, but their impact is etched in you forever. That's the essence of Stoic success, legacy without ego. Let me share a story. There was a high school janitor named Mr. Ellis. To most, he was invisible, but every morning he arrived early and left motivational quotes on the whiteboards of empty classrooms. Every Friday, he left handwritten notes in the lockers of students who seemed sad or withdrawn. He never told anyone, never asked for credit. Years later, students wrote about him in their college essays. Some said those notes kept them alive. Mr. Ellis never had an audience, but he had influence. That's silent success. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, Stoicism invites you to be solid, not flashy, just real. So how do we begin practicing this kind of success? Detach from validation. Ask, would I still do this if no one knew? Would I still create, teach, serve, or build if there were no likes, no applause, no spotlight? Redefine success on your own terms. Write a success list, not of goals, but of qualities. For example, I stayed kind under pressure. I honored my word. I chose presence over urgency. Celebrate private victories. You woke up and showed up, even when no one asked you to. You apologized when it was hard. You chose not to gossip, not to complain, to rise instead of react. These are the wins that shape character. Let your life speak. Your energy tells the truth. People may forget your words, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And here's the paradox. The more you live for private victory, the more impactful your public life becomes, because people trust those who aren't trying to impress them. They're drawn to those who are quietly powerful. Remember, mastery isn't loud. It's the monk in the marketplace, the artist in the attic, the builder behind the scenes. The world needs less noise, more substance, less branding, more integrity. So today, choose the path that doesn't always get applause. Choose the moment of silence where your values speak loudest. And as we wrap this episode, remember, silent success is not the absence of ambition, it's the presence of peace. Not the absence of excellence, but the absence of ego. Because at the end of your life, the real question won't be, how many people followed me? But rather, how many lives did I touch without needing anything in return? Let that be your measure. Let that be your North Star. And now, as we step into reflection, let's bring together all three pillars of the Stoic path and how they build a life of mastery that speaks for itself. So here we are. The path of self-mastery isn't built overnight. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it is sacred. It's a commitment to focusing your attention on what matters, to building discipline not to impress, but to embody, and to finding peace not in what the world sees, but in how you show up when no one's watching. Let's remember, focus protects your energy, discipline directs your power, silent success preserves your soul, and through this path, you don't just achieve more, you become more, not for applause, but for alignment. If this spoke to you, subscribe for more meditative, meaningful reflections. Share this with someone craving calm in the chaos, and most of all, live quietly, with deep purpose. Until next time, walk the path with grace and let your mastery speak for itself.